If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower, every day of the week. And we've got some fabulous guests today that individually would be great, but collectively are just, you'll see for yourself. The word of the day is empathy. We're going to focus on that so we have a center point. And with that said, chat's open. We depend on you for your comments. And we want to be as relevant as we can with as many valuable takeaways as you can take with you today and use. Sarah, can't thank you enough. It's been too long. I have a hard time if it goes beyond 2 weeks without seeing Sarah. So, Sarah, why don't you bring everybody a little bit up to date and your initial thoughts on empathy so we have something to measure against later on.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Don, for the lovely invitation to come on again and be with you and everybody. Most people know who I am. My background is in nursing and now I'm a holistic health coach. So empathy is a huge part of what I actually do. And what is empathy? Well, in a nutshell, for me, it's about being able to understand somebody's feelings and emotions, as well as feel somebody's feelings and emotions, or both, in a nutshell. So it's about that deep understanding, that deep feeling. And we're here today to explore that more in today's world and how it fits in our world today, not just in my line of work in coaching, but in everybody and anybody's life, because having that empathic nature to a more or lesser degree helps us in the world. And I'd like to invite our new guest, Janice. Lovely to be with you here today, Janice.
Thank you.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, thank you for having me. This is my first time ever with Donald, and so wonderful to meet you, Sarah. I really enjoy learning more about you. And I have to say, empathy is a word that has been a core of my life. You know, I go into a room and I can read the room, and empathy is really understanding what you're going into, not inserting yourself into a community, but really taking a step back. So I'm excited to say that we're going to invite our community to talk with us so we can all dig a little deeper, because you're right. In this world, we have the need for people to be more empathetic.
I think that's such a great start. And it puts me in such a great position to build from that. And that's what we're here to do, is build from where we are. And everybody can be equal at a level of one word. And then it's really about application, context, delivery, packaging, presentation that goes along with that word. And, to be empathetic, you have to somehow have some humility, have some level of modesty, have some level of appreciation for what you don't have as much as what you do have, and the ability to make people feel like they're being heard and seen and cared about. No one likes to be alone in anything, any decision. And when someone just smiles at you, it ignites a smile, right? And if they say hello, you almost feel bad if you didn't have a chance to say hello back, right? You feel guilty or something. So with empathy brings connection, relationship, and why not meet everybody where they're at, not where you want them to be or you think you should, because that's where judgment kind of interferes with empathy. So before we move it right back to Sarah, I want to just recognize these wonderful people. Thank you so much. Hello from Pakistan, a new name. So great to have you. Ashif is here. Ashif is here every day. If you got to know him, he's got an amazing background, worked with some of the biggest celebrities, and just a great gentleman up in, I believe it's Ontario, somewhere in Canada. We got so many UK, Australia, Canada, so many attraction to this show. Thank you, Ashif. Ken is here. Ken's always good with his long comments and his savor to flavor. Thank you for showing up today. The awesomeness, okay, delectable nuggets, perseverance, knowledge. I mean, these are all great words. We got 7 shows right there. Rita's here. Happy Sunday. Rita's here on Wednesdays. We always make it a W, whatever her subject is, to match Wednesdays. Happy Sunday to you back. Stephen's here. Stephen's a great guy. I know he knows Melissa Cohen and Leslie Nidick so well, and we're going to have Stephen on the show. Great to see you. We go forward. Oh, Catherine's here. Catherine just was a wonderful guest this week. You really should know Catherine. She's into healing and is doing so many wonderful things for kids and has so many wonderful activities. So thank you, Catherine. Love to have you back again. So with that, we got a great send-off here or launch. What's your thoughts now, Sarah?
I just want to come back to what you said, Don, about understanding people as well, that listening to people. I think a big part of empathy is validating people's thoughts, feelings, emotions as well, because it's so easy for us to just listen without validating. And a lot of people in the world were an unseen, unheard child and lacked that validation. So feel the need to be people pleasers in the world to be validated. So if we can listen and validate what they're saying, as well as have that conversation around whilst we're being empathic towards them, I think that's a big part of their own healing, just the fact that they've been heard and validated, maybe for the first time ever in their life. What do you think, Janice?
While you were speaking, I actually took a contrary thought in my head, and I don't know why it came up, because I was thinking how, and first of all, I want to say hi to Catherine and Stephen. Thank you for being here. The past few years with COVID and with the political discourse in America, I found a hard time, and as a person who made a product and believe in that everyone needs to be comfortable with my product, Tausi, I had a hard time feeling that same empathy that I normally give to people who had completely political opposing views or different views on the pandemic. And I think I would love to explore just some tools, because it was shocking to me felt like I lost some of my natural empathetic attitude towards other people. And, how does one draw empathy towards somebody who you feel as though is being honestly a complete idiot, not looking at science, and not caring about the well-being of others?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and that lends itself to why this show I've decided not to have anything controversial brought up, because just a word makes people defensive in just hearing it, right? And the safety starts to disappear, the questions start to come in, and then the openness starts to shut down. And there's nothing that could ever be accomplished in a question, answer, or an hour that's going to change anybody or anything. So the alternative is to find an island in the sun that you can take off with 50 people, that you don't have to care, and they know and respect everybody enough not to demonstrate anything controversial, right? But if you can now go in the direction hardly anybody goes, which is how good can we be? How happy can we be? How respectful can we be? And it's about who you choose to be with. Just getting back to empathy really quickly, when I'm thinking about it, most people in their minds, when they visualize it, look at it, someone down on the ground, them being in a great position, stooping down, sincerely asking, can I help? And not realizing what they can learn can help them, right? They could be the one who gained the most, right? By what goodness they bring. So if a goodness is transactional, or a goodness is to make you feel more higher character, or whatever it is, you're only getting half of an orange out of every orange you buy, right? And it's what do you go in for yourself that will lend itself for something for them too. So it's not someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. It's like, I've got a surplus of this. They have a deficiency. You know, why wouldn't I share? And everybody becomes whole. And that's why I turned off the news. Everything that's going to be is going to be, especially if I have absolutely no control. But what it can do is steal your consciousness, your attitude, your positivity, you know, which is not to be thoughtful, but it's to say, I only got so much time. I got so much I need to get done. Everything you do or think takes you either closer to your goal or further away, right? You want to eat, you know, candy all day, or you want to eat a carrot, right? The first day, you'll never see the difference. But over time, it makes a difference. And, you know, today it's like musical chairs with less chairs and faster music.
Yeah.
You don't have time to slow down. You don't have the luxury to say, hey, let's talk about your opinion. You know, it's like, here's what I got to do. I'm on my way. Are you going to help me? Or are you going to ride with me? But you can't get in front of me. So with that, let's get back to the comments because they're coming in fast and furious. Aharon is here. Thank you for coming. Another regular. Sia's here. Saya, I never get.
Sia.
Oh, Sia. Sia corrected me. SEE. So I'm sorry, but I found myself in time. Thank you for coming. So great to see you. Everybody is so salutary towards everybody. Sorry I'm late, double booked. Not a problem. Listen, a minute anywhere is a minute well spent. And if it's not here, it's going to be somewhere else anyways. But, you know, support is everything too. You know, it's easy to be empathetic when you do get a thank you or a smile, or you take somebody from a not so good place to a better place. And, you know, the thing is, empathy fits so much into that saying I promoted the other week, which is feel, felt, found.
Yeah.
Right? Which is going up to somebody who's having a hard time and say, I know exactly how you feel. Because at that point, you're empathetic. The next thing is, I felt the same way, which means everybody's like you, or everybody could be like you. But I found something. And that's what changed everything for me. Right? So you're starting not at a corrective standpoint, or you're lacking, here's what you need to get right. It's like, that's just the way it works. There's got to be something funny for Sarah to be laughing.
I'm just laughing at Danny said he's just prepping dinner and multitasking and listening. And Sia said, what you making? And we all invited. I love it.
Well, Danny was on this week for the first time and just knocked it out of the park too. Because you know what? The qualification to be a great guest here is to be a really good person wanting to help other good people. You know, and if that's who you are, that's all people want, right? Just like if you're in nursing, they only want to know about how you can care for them, right? And if you do care for them and you really respect them, healing can come very easily when you're around a supportive, positive community who just wants you to succeed. And then you can celebrate with at that point. So Christine's here. I haven't seen Christine, but I know she works so hard during the week. She's got 7 different things she's going on at the same time. I have faith in the ability of people to change because I have changed so much politically, emotionally, and spiritually. You can't change anybody else unless they're ready and willing to be changed. There's so much we can't control. You know, and that's the key. Control what you can control. You know, manage what's manageable. You know, don't take on more and then complain you got too much. Ashif says hard lives can make a person harder empathetic. Within reflection, it can make them embrace, feel both. Well, you know what's that saying? Without there go I, but for the grace of God, right? And when anything happens to anybody, it could happen to you. And how, you know, and why not get there already before it does? You know, why not get to understand? Because I think when people know there's a person, there's a thing, there's a tomorrow, it's the biggest thing, they have something to live for, right? And empathy is showing them the light, telling them if they can't see it, it's there. I've seen it, just wait, and patience, tolerance goes a long way towards solving any problems. And I think that's the reason for getting to know people over slower periods of time, but deeper than 1, 2, 3. What do you want to do? Or hey, we got to make a decision here, and right off it starts out kind of like rocking and rolling. So with that, Janice, what's your thoughts on any new comments that you might have seen or thoughts that have come to you?
Well, I have to say, you touched upon something that really touched my heart, is that really empathy, gives that person that hope. And, I had a dear friend this week who was dealing with a loss in her family, and she's like, "No, don't come over." And I had meetings and Zoom meetings, and I needed to be on them. And then when I was done with that, I dropped everything and I went to her door, and she was just like, "I told you not to come." And I said, just to sit with her, and just to be right there. I couldn't say anything to fix anything, but just to hold her hand and just to give her hope that the sun will shine again. And I loved what you said, that empathy really just is heart to heart, and just to sit with another person's heart and see their hearts and see their goodness and see through. Growing from my original comment, like how to deal with other people with other political or different viewpoints, it's going to their heart. And that's what we all have in common. And I think that I learned something, and I appreciate that. So, and also hello, Raquel and Mike and everybody else in the audience. Sarah, what do you think?
Go ahead,
I
Sarah.
wanted to jump on what you said earlier as well, actually, Janice, about when you felt disconnected with people, and I think you said a loss of empathy. You felt a loss of empathy, and that is totally normal in the world, because we all have different beliefs. And when we come across somebody that is challenging or more difficult, their beliefs tend to be opposing to ours, and their behaviors tend to be opposing to ours. And what we can do to help ourselves, because it's so easy to make a judgment or an assumption without knowing the full backstory. So to be able to boost our empathy, we can talk to that person and ask questions and find out what's going on. Just to, again, it comes back to validation. We all believe what we believe because of our life's experiences, our parents, our social influences. And it's not to say they're right, you're wrong, you're right, they're wrong. There's no right and wrong. Our beliefs are our beliefs. But by talking to people and asking questions, we can break down some of those barriers. And as you've just said, Janice, come back to our heart, because it truly is that heart to heart. And as Don, as you've just said, empathy is helping people to have that hope, as well as understanding what they're thinking, feeling, and where their emotions are going. If we can tap into their heart and have those conversations, but know as well that it's okay to have different beliefs, and it's okay to think different thoughts. But the art of having conversation, like as in a debate, how we used to, with opposing thoughts and beliefs, but remaining open-minded, seems to have diminished over time. And now people seem to be less empathic because they're more closed-minded. They're not having they're not keeping their minds open to the beliefs and opinions of others. They're fixed on, well, this is what I know, this is what I think, this is what I believe, therefore I'm right. And anything outside of that is wrong. So if we can have those conversations and break down some of those barriers to help people open their minds to more information. I'm not saying we're going into that conversation to change that person's mind, but being empathic and coming from our heart, we can tap into what their beliefs are, why they believe that, and have a conversation and debate to help people to open their minds, if that's possible.
I think that so insightful and profound and so much of value. And when you think of empathy, you also have to think of timing. If some older person falls, your only interest is picking them up and making sure they're okay. You're not going to be there long enough to know what TV they watch or who they voted for. But here's another thing, is you have to always be the chooser and choose to only focus with the people you know on the commonalities, right? You're never, because once you move beyond into the uncommon stuff, then you're distancing, putting up walls, justifying, having to defend. And meanwhile, that whole time you could have spent doing things you love to do together and have always done. And you don't have to lose everybody or anybody because of their beliefs if everybody respects everybody's desire to have their own personal beliefs, and private beliefs sometimes should stay private. There's one thing to being totally exposed and vulnerable. Those are the areas where you need expression, right? And there's some things that you need privacy, and some things you're still working on. It's not ready it's not out of the oven yet. So I think when you really take a bigger view of the way you think, and then take what you think and how you apply it, right? Not everybody needs the uncensored version, and we talked about that. How many times do you get excited or get emotional and you start typing out a text? And if you don't say, this is exactly how I felt at this time, is what you're going to say. I'm going to come back tomorrow morning and take another look at it. And what I always say, that's like overkill. What did you want to say? Not how you're pounding it in, right? And it gets so soft at the end, but I was able to work through it because it was genuine. It was authentic, my feelings. And in my opinion, was justified. But then who's going to be the better person and come back with something softer when someone comes at you with something harder? In the retail, one thing I always learned, because I started that way, is people would come up to the counter and some people were aggravated, frustrated, whatever, upset. And they would start screaming even with a store full of people. And I found if I responded with a whisper, it would dramatically bring their volume down. Right? And what you're dealing with is what was in front of you. How you deal with it is going to determine what continues in front of you. And I think that's the key. If you got to do 90% to complete an issue, then be happy. Everybody got it done. Right? Too many people, I'm already at 50. I'm not going, it's like, who's fooling who? With that said, we got so many comments. The reason I put on the board is I know where I left off. So it's not that I'm lazy with that, but here we've got Christine, I think we covered. I think here we go with Danny, catching guys while prepping dinner. Found out what that was all about. Thea, what are you making? Okay, we got to move on. Let's get to something with some letters in it. Okay, here's Sia. Got bounced back to see, oh my, had to look up. Okay, potatoes, that's the answer. That'll be next week's word for Danny. I just had coffee. It's nice everybody's just getting comfortable, leaning into this, enjoying it, because, Mike's here. Mike was here actually last Monday, I believe, and was just unbelievable. Always is. I can't say enough for the Hounds. I mean, a great group, a lot going on, a lot of energy, a lot of growth. And, everybody helping everybody help everybody is the answer. There's too few of us. We're 40, 50, 100 people out of 900 million here on LinkedIn. What we would be happy with 1 or 2, whatever a month. The scale is tremendous. And what you need to do is attract what you want to come to you by how you come to it. Right? Because you're always you, and that's all you can be. The best thing is to be the best you all the time. Dress up for any occasion. You know, here we go. We've lost nuance and replaced with binary. We're either Republican or Democrat, leave or remain. Yeah, but that's the way most people do, is they sort, but they sort too early and then they can't come back. You know, there's a saying, some will, some won't, so what? You know, that's just the way it works. But why try to change what you probably won't when you can totally align and integrate with what's in front of you, right? If you only got half of the people here, it'd still be 450 million. You know, that's plenty. Okay, here we go. Here's James. Oh my God, debate. It's okay to disagree. You know, it's such a time suck when you get into this and you feel worse for it even. There's no winners.
Oh, yeah.
Agree, Sarah. It's imperative to find common ground to get rapport. You know, and it's just not getting sucked into things. You are so very welcome. I see you saved. Okay, so lot of flowery language. I always respond exactly how I feel in text to allow it to get out, then edit it so it's a clear, respectful message. And you know, and important things, I don't text. You know, context, it means everything. And especially if you say one or two words, then you really leave somebody in a blank. Rita says law of attraction. Janice is supporting the show as we go, which is well appreciated. Dean is here. Dean's a wonderful gentleman. He's got a terrific story. Checked out Janice product, can definitely relate as a one dial salesman. Well, Dean is a sales professional here almost all the time. Danny says, and he's right, there doesn't need to be a winner. Life isn't a competition. And, you know, life isn't an outcome. It's a continuum. As long as you're playing the game plays, you're in the game. You know, have you ever seen people come from dead last and win? All the time, you know, and that's their style. Some people just lag back, and then when it's time, they put it into gear and they take over. And that's so beautiful. I love races. I don't know for what reason lately, but you see these people who are running like 400 meters, 800 meters, whatever the thing is. And all of a sudden someone gets a kick and it's like, they're gone. It's like, how could you race right even with somebody and at the last leg just go at it? And I think that's what this is about. It's about stretching our mind, stretching our consciousness, you know, and getting back to reality with real people in real time. Because with AI and everything going on, it's not even a discussion on it. I might not even be talking to a person here. Yeah. Right? I'm dealing with a machine. Why am I doing that? I wouldn't be sitting around with a can opener for an hour, you know, expecting some sort of interaction. So with that, Sarah, covering a lot of ground, we're on the move.
Okay, so let's move it on then, Don, with empathy. Let's come back to that. So one thing I know about empathy is that it can also be a learned behavior. So if your parents and family members were empathic towards you, you would learn that behavior from being born. It would be instilled in you. It would just be a behavior. But there are families that don't have empathy or have got very little empathy. So the children of that family then have to learn empathy. I believe some of us are born with empathy, others learn it along the way. And for those who don't have much empathy, it can be learned. It's like emotional intelligence. It can be learned. It's something that we can practice and tap into. And as I said earlier, asking questions of the other person to find out what's going on with them, to validate them, helps us to feel or understand what that other person's feeling. But I think as well, there's also emotional avoidance. And that is those types of people who avoid emotions tend to be really burned out emotionally. So they tend to avoid all sources of stress and distress that will trigger emotions. So they might well have been an empathic person, but the cards life's dealt to them could have caused them burnout. So they could have lost that, their sense of empathy as a protective mechanism to protect themselves from the other person's emotions. So that's another avenue to explore when we're exploring those people that we find challenging and difficult. You know, do they just not have any empathy, or are they being emotional avoidant because they've been through some really struggling, tough times?
Makes perfect sense. What do you think, Janice?
Well, I so appreciate how you said that, and it reminded me of something that Ashif I hope I'm saying your name correctly, said earlier on, that life can be hard, and the hardness can either, you know, create that hardcore or an empathetic person. And emotional avoidance is something that I deal with my family of origin, and it's really hard to elicit a conversation that goes deeper. And so, you know, I feel like the most empathetic thing that I can do is to meet these individuals where they're at and be okay with a conversation that in my world feels extremely superficial. And that for superficial conversations for me are really draining. And but I find that I am, now that I've changed my mindset on how to reach these members, and be willing to have the joyful conversation about a TV show and give it as best as, you know, joy that I can. And then my hope, which empathy has, is that the next time it'll go just maybe a little deeper and maybe a little deeper, because I care and I love them so much. And I know that our upbringing really created that protection for them to not want their emotions to be out there. So I really appreciate what you said. And I appreciate Ashif what he brought into it, but walking into the other person's shoes. It's so true.
Yeah, and everybody's shoes in time, I say, will be your shoes. And the other thing was, when you decide to practice empathy, it's also a matter of degree. Not everybody is down and out and can't help themselves, but just calling somebody to check in on them is empathetic, right? You know, because how many people call you up every day, or say, let's have a call every day? Not that many. I know, you know, maybe 2 or 3, especially if you're looking to talk with people. But those are the little things that count. You know, I remember Jim Rohn, and I was actually conversational with him back in the 90s. And he gave me that story of, he had the best shoe shine of his life. And he was sitting there thinking, do I give this gentleman $1 or $2? And he only gave him $1. And he said, you know, that extra $1 was with me all day. You know, I said to myself, why didn't I just give him an extra $1? And now I'm thinking about it. So his thing was, always tip more if there's a decision between one and another, because then you don't have to leave thinking, you know. And I think in life, you're tipping all the time, you know. And how much do you want to tip? Well, you get the transaction. And even when I was in sales, I would always give the freebie away after I made the sale, never before, because then it would be a part of the sale and it would be expected. And this was totally unexpected. You already got my money. I already got my goods. I was totally happy. And now here's $20 more of air hose or something. Sticks with people. It's the little things done right over time that compound. You know, if you go to wonderful resorts, Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton, they do little things so well. You know, little signature things, little ways they package and present things. And maybe most people don't notice it, but the people who do, don't forget it, right? And you want to make yourself unforgettable in the best way possible. It's like, well, like I told Sarah, when she comes on the show, everything lights up, you know, and people don't have any control over it because it's coming from within. Anybody can superficially create any image, but once they start talking, that image disappears and they show up again. Right? And you want to have a little reserve with everybody. You know, it's like, maybe I'll get ahead of myself with you. What can I do to help you? And somebody could say, I just bought lunch last time. And it's like, it's okay. I want to do it again. You'll make me feel good, right? By letting me help you feel good. And I think when you can enter a deep conversation a little deeper to start with, you know, because it's a dance. You know, empathy. You know, and what dance do you want to dance to? How fast do you want to dance? How much do you want to enjoy it? And I think if you go through life, why not? You know, and it is what it is. It's what you add to it for as long as you want to. You know, I know people can find, you know, if you see growing up, if you had a ball, that's all you needed to go out and have fun. You know, you didn't need all this other equipment. And it was the friends, it was the fresh air, it was all that. So, you know, bring back the memories and the times that served you so well, because they can serve you again. They're not over, they're just to be continued. So here's a comment from Sia. Emotional avoidance is very real, especially being raised by the silent generation parents. You're so right. And, you know, it just shows you is you have to reevaluate what you carry with you today from what isn't serving you that might have or never served you. Who gave it to you? Why did you accept it? And why do you continue to keep it? Right. And I think if you can take inventory, you can reset. You'd be an awful poker player, Sarah, because I know
I know.
what it is. Which one?
I was just laughing at Danny when he was young. He had a stick, and that was second hand.
Well, you know, you make it what it is. You know, how many people have a doll that's all beat up and everything, but that is so important to that little child for whatever it is. So it just shows you can't judge the book by its cover. You should take time to say, okay, I see how you're up here. Is that really the you inside? You know, and why not buy some more vowels before you solve the puzzle? What's the benefit of being so right so soon? You can be right a little bit slower. You know, it's not like you're on a game show. So with that, I forget where we left off, but I think it's
Paul's come in. So hi, Paul. He's
Paul.
Dropped a couple of messages in.
Yeah, Paul's really good at commenting. He's prodigious. I always say, I don't know. He's on every show I ever go to. You know, this emotional piece is a massive differentiator now more than ever because of AI. Being vulnerable has been a massive superpower, and I realize many people are going through the same things. It's just that most don't have the courage to share. So right, but I'll tell you one thing. AI is here to stay, and it's all how it's used. Right? It's, you know, just like Google. You could have said, well, why not just keep going to the dictionary, right? Or anything else. So change is something you need to embrace because it's going to happen with or without you, right? You can either get dragged forward by it or you can get in front of it and leverage it. And you need to be the change all the time. You need to change faster than ever before, but you need people to tell you where it is the changes need to take place. You shouldn't live life in a vacuum, you know, because that's where people get in trouble. They get the loop going on in their head, you know, not this, worried, until someone says, what are you worried about? You got everything you could ever want for and more. And if it's not coming your way, so what? I mean, at the end of the day, who are you anyways? Who owes you something, right? I mean, what, you know, no one's guaranteed tomorrow. And that's why I live every day like it's my last, because one day it will be, right? And when it happens, there's nothing superficial that's going to be meaningful except for the people you met, the experiences you had, you know, and those are already in the book. They can't be taken away. You know, and I think it's you who needs to bring it out in yourself and everything. So with that, I think, let me see if there's any, because there's so many comments. Catherine says, learning to live from the inside out allows our life. So true, Catherine, so with it. Here's to raising our sunshine quotients. And that's what Catherine's all about, is her sunshine program. You got to get to know Catherine, you really do. And I'm hoping to have her back on the show. Yes, I agree. Change needs to be embraced as quickly as possible, for life is about the survival of the fittest. You know, and if you're working in a group, it's not absolutely about you, right? If you're in team sports, every team member is just as important as you are for the team. And every celebration now gets multiplied by each team member. And when you're not celebrating you, you're celebrating them, and they can't wait then to celebrate you. So what ratchets down can ratchet up. What builds walls can turn into bridges. And it's up to us to start deciding not what wall we're going to tear down, but what bridge is open to be built. Why go through the double effort? And walls crumble on their own based on their strength too. So sometimes time takes its course. Rita says, only one who always likes change is a wet baby. And with that, I don't know where I'm at. Who wants to go next? Or who? Okay.
Well, shall I just say one thing that I do find is that clients of mine can get in their own way as well. So they're pushing so hard to move forwards without letting go of the things that's holding them back. And once they stop pushing forwards and start taking stock of what it is they're trying to do and what behaviors and thoughts and beliefs they've got that are actually holding them back. And once they can let go of what's holding them back, they will just move forwards automatically. It's just a natural progression.
Well, and I think that's so beautiful because everything we're talking about is also about evolution.
Yeah.
Is growing, changing for the better. And everything that you've ever done has gotten you to the exact point you are now. And if you like who you are and what you are, it would have never come to be without all the situations and conditions that you had to deal with. And not only that, but now you're there, it's the future that could bring the most excitement, right? And not only that, but how do you want to create your future? How do you want to design it? I mean, if you were producing your own movie, who would star in it? What would they wear? What would they say? And then who would your co-stars be? Right? And then all of a sudden you start bringing your co-stars in and let's have a movie. And that's possible now with a LinkedIn Live like this.
Right off the bat, mine would be a musical. I have to say, I think musicals for me and all music fast track the emotional connection that we can have with people. And it gets right to the heart. And so, if it's a sad song, like I shared with a friend of mine who just was really sad about the loss of her loved one, just to help move that energy because she needed more time to cry, or if it's a song that's the right time to uplift. To me, music can be the one thing that helps unite me in empathy with somebody if we're not moving the needle in a conversation.
I think that's beautiful too, because you need to fuel your growth. What excites you, what energizes you, what stimulates you. And that's why every morning I do at least a 2-mile walk. I've got my Audible going on or my music, and I'm a whole different person when I get back, because I've seen the world already. I've been with nature. I've been with birds and water and fountains, and it just transforms you. And then you see other people with their dogs and with their conversations, and now there's a world out there. When you're sitting in a room in front of a screen and you're sitting there, you start to get confined mentally and emotionally. You can still move through and physically do what you need to do. But, the nice thing about working from home in a sense is an 8-hour day can be turned into a 12-hour day with 4-hour breaks. And that's, because when I had to go to an office every day and it was 8 to 5 and lunch and coffee and blah, 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 there was so much wasted time at the water fountain and everything else. And at 5 o'clock, you were glad to get out of there most of the time. You're not going to go home and do more of this. You're going to try and unwind. But that's really creating your environment, your culture, who makes me better for being around them, who cheers me up anytime I see them, and why aren't I scheduling these things for myself? These are for my attitude, right? Not my bank account. This is for my happiness. And I know everybody around me depends on me to be happy. so I can help them be happy and they don't have to worry about someone else and they can take care of themselves. So, it's selfishly unselfish, all of this,
Yeah.
and once you understand that, it's a pleasure.
It's self-care. It's
Absolutely.
necessary.
Well, why don't you share what self-care can mean to empathy?
Self-care, it's about looking after yourself and putting yourself first, and empathizing, feeling into your own emotions and feelings, and giving yourself the time that you need, because we can be so rush, hustle, that we don't stop and take that time for ourselves. So it's whatever self-care means to you. If it's a walk outside with the dog in nature, if it's listening to an audible, if it's texting with a friend or calling a family member, it doesn't matter. A hot bath, it really doesn't matter, but it's something that really nourishes your soul, and it's necessary to keep us in a good state of mind, in a good state of health. So self-care is necessary. It's not selfish.
Not only is it not selfish, it's preferable. And there's a fine line between really falling in love with yourself and having an ego. But there's sometimes, you ever see when someone wins a championship or race, I mean, their hand pounds on something or raises up in the air and they're jumping up and down in victory. Well, just solving a little puzzle that you've had an issue with, or finally overcoming a challenge, the exhilaration from just your ability to be resilient, to hang in there, to be patient, to be tolerant. And at the end of the day, success is purely an attitude. And when you have an attitude that I'm going to win, and I'm going to win big, and that's all I know, and now it's just a distance and time between that event that will bring it all together. And it's like, I don't have time to sit still. I can't sit, you see track runners fall, they get right up, and I saw one, without going into detail, who fell at the beginning and won the race. I couldn't believe it, but it was that determination. So with that, what can we add to this, Janice?
Well, I have to say, Dean's comment, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I kind of had some fun with him in the comments. My whole business is about being comfortable, even if you're like in an uncomfortable situation. So I like to bring comfort to people's physical experiences, and therefore it becomes a mental shift for them. And I think that, I have learned so much through these LinkedIn lives, through Raquel's show, through your show, Donald, through just listening to so many members of the Hounds, like Catherine and Stephanie and Gail and Mike and Sia, and it's just Paul, Stephen. There's so many names I can call out, but just to really sort of break down the conditioning that I recognize that I was raised with and I wasn't aware of, that perfectionism and not wanting to be vulnerable. And empathy is allowing oneself to be vulnerable because you're having to share a little bit of your own heart, whether or not that's going to be received. And I am so grateful for this time together, and from what I'm learning from both of you and from the commenters here. Thank you for taking your time to be with us, because it just warms my heart, and I feel like I've learned so much. And this has kind of been like a spiritual experience, a church, Sunday morning church, going to church. It feels so good. So thank you all.
Well, thank you, because that compliments and favors everybody equally around you right now. And I do believe, I thought about it yesterday, and it's funny how so many people that I come on this show with, it's almost like mutual therapy that we're going through, right? Because we're stretching our mind, we're responsive in the second, a moment that something shows up, and we're able to deliver it without filters or without thinking about it. And that's the most natural approach. And it's so nice to be fully natural. You know, that you're not having to be artificial in some ways because that's just the requirement, whether you like it or not. And the other thing is the possibilities, because the wealth is in our spirit, our hearts, and our minds. And the next step is, how do we come together and work together with it? You know, it's one thing to think together, to learn together, to applaud each other, but it's also saying, hey, anybody ready for the next step? And I'm taking the hill. You know, I'm suited up, ready to go. Let's do something. And I think that's when armies for good can make a difference, right? By sharing, just like Janice said. And I think what the Hounds, what we have, what everybody has, is a desire to help everybody be better than they could have been without us. And I'm into opening doors and windows, not getting better locks or securing anything, because the best empathy you can provide for anybody is freedom. And if you can take them out of their situation that they think is never going to happen, you know, and you show them how not only it can happen, but how they can make it happen, right? It doesn't have to be a stranger or somebody else. But here's another thing. There was a lady, I actually remember, she was a keynote speaker, and she had come off the stage. I was really fascinated by what she had to say, so I waited a little bit to talk to her. And I just asked her, I said, what motivated you to achieve this? And she told me, she said, well, I'll tell you how it happened. I quit school at 16, had a couple of kids, married a husband I shouldn't have. And I one day I asked him, can I have $20? And he said, what's it for? And all of a sudden my world shatters. Like, I got to explain what I'm going to do with $20. And from that moment on, I went back to school, got advanced degrees, got divorced. But it was that one time that it just shattered the glass for me. And that's what it can do for anybody. The one chance meeting that someone comes into your life that you never knew was coming, may never come back, but they left you with a nugget or a direction or something. And that's where the hope and the possibilities of who you have yet to meet, what you have yet to learn. But if you're moving with people or moving where you're moving, that's the best place you can find yourself. So, Sarah, coming up on top of hour, looks like this is just keeps feeding on itself and getting better and better.
Doesn't it just keep flowing? And just to further what you said, Don, I do believe that in our times of need, the right people come to us. And because we kind of put that energy out to the universe, you know, we please help, you know, we need help. And serendipitously, something happens, comes into our life that is maybe not always the answer, but is a step in the right direction. And it comes back way back to what you said earlier again, that Janice backed up on, is that feeling of hope, that sense of hope. You know, if we can give anybody anything, it's that hope. We're loaning somebody our kindness. Rather than speaking negatively to them, we're giving them some of our positivity, some of our kindness, and instilling that bit of hope in them that they can get better, that things will improve. What do you think, Janice?
Well, I love what you're saying, and I'm taking it in, but I'm also wanting to know what your answer would be to Paul's question about the correlation between empathy and healing. And so I think you're the right person to answer that.
Yeah, I did see that. Thank you. And thanks, Paul, for asking. For me personally, I believe that as a coach or a healer, having that empathic presence within ourselves can help that person to heal more, because we're helping them tap into what their body does innately. But to do that, we have to help them to understand that their body does that. And to do that, we have to help them to see and feel that, so we can validate their feelings and thoughts and beliefs and emotions, and as empaths and healers and coaches, we can help guide that person around to tap into their own selves, because a lot of people have dissociated themselves from their emotions as a survival mechanism. So it's about bringing them back around very gently, and as an empath, sensing how they're taking on board what we're saying and our guidance to them, to help them come back around and remind them that they were born a healer. They just have to tap back into their own self. They have to learn that empathy within themselves again, and listen to their own body wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Janice, coming back to you. I mean, this is getting better all the time.
Yeah, we only have a couple minutes left, and I'm so just grateful to have been here. I think empathy is something that I love what you said, Sarah, that I learned that it's, some people are not born with it, but it's emotional intelligence that can be learned. So we can actually that gives us more empathy for those who don't seem to have it at that moment. So I think, that's something that, as Mike likes to talk about, is that kindergarten mentality, just like when you look at our children, and if you look into the childlike heart of everybody, it helps me to connect with that empathy when somebody might have had a tough life, like Ashif had mentioned, that hardness could have happened because of their circumstances in their life and that conditioning. But if we look at them as a child and look into their childlike heart that we all have, I think it helps us to deepen our empathy muscle and get better at taking off the layers of maybe judgment or that should never be there when you're really wanting to get to the heart of somebody.
Yeah, and I think so, thinking about it, so many people look at people in situations and then approach it as if they don't even want to see that situation, let alone help it. Like that homeless person over there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only thing that's true about that is it's a person. It's a real person who's living today, just like you are in the moment. And you're judging and they're needing. I mean, who is deficient here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Someone's deficient in maybe one or two ways, but someone whose soul is dark and looks at things they could help and instead go out of their way to build more pain to it, right? To know people are suffering. And if they're smart enough and advanced enough, if that's what they are, they shouldn't respond in that way because it duplicates in the wrong way. And that's going to be their legacy. They just sent a river, a ripple that's going to affect so many people and infect so many people, when it's really, how are you inoculating the people you're around? I mean, if you had a vaccine against unhappiness or whatever in people, and you could say, hey, just give me your arm, in a couple seconds you'll be up again. Well, you do have that ability to inoculate, but it's not as simple as a shot, and it's not as easy. But the other thing is what's your commitment? If someone's there every day, will you say hello every day, or is this a one-time, hope for the best? And I think that's when things change, is when people actually do want to say, move over, I want to sit next to you. Mm-hmm. Or what would happen one day if you just dreamed up, when I go somewhere to eat, I'll take an extra sandwich and I'll eat it with this person. Right? Is that going to hurt anything? And meanwhile, your experience would be, wow, I never did that before. And it was worth the sandwich I got for that person. And you never know what you don't know. And that person could have been just like you a year ago. And now that's where it is. But it doesn't mean it has to stay that way. And I think that's the other part of hope. Whatever it is, I think the key thing people need to hear, you're okay, we're okay, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And once you say that with some confidence and comfort, then it's like, maybe, and that's when the door starts opening to maybe. And, it's like a person starving. You don't give them a big steak and potatoes the first meal. You nurse them back to life. And how many people are you doing that for? You know, I remember talking to somebody who's into animal rescue and all that. And, you know, they have programs where people who are so busy during the week can rent a dog or a cat for 3 days and return it. Right? So, you know, if you're home by the weekend, you don't have anything, you know, you get a dog. And you know what the beauty of it is? 50% of the dogs and cats don't come back. Because they just love it so much, they find a way to take care of it because it takes care of them, you know, and there's so much in the world and you need so little of it to be overfilled with it. Then it's not a matter of supply, it's approach. So with that said, if we've got any final comments, I think we did a really good job of covering. I know I didn't cover everyone, but we certainly tried. You know, here's Stephen who has a comment. Superficial conversations aren't fulfilling. Finding opportunities for deeper connection. You can feel uncomfortable, but timing and empathy do the trick. And you know, when someone motivates you to go deeper, it's a place you typically wouldn't have gone. And you know, one thing about vulnerability, it gets less vulnerable the more you do. Yeah. Right? Because it gets numbing on its own. Because it's just like, you know, you take a Band-Aid off and you'll heal better. Right? When you get some oxygen in there, when you air it out, when you keep it clean. And that's very easy to see if you take it to the next level of your emotions. You know, and then if nothing, and not nothing, but an extra tool is just be grateful. Mm-hmm. You know, gratitude goes so long in remembering all the things that you're so lucky to have experienced, all the people that have come into your life and your future. So with that, we're at top of hour. Can't thank everybody enough. I'll give final words to our new guest, Janice. Mm-hmm. Then we'll have Sarah with her final words. And it's been a wonderful show. I can't thank everybody enough because it's like cathartic. You know, you feel so much healthier and upbeat. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty healthy and upbeat an hour ago. So it just shows you. So Janice?
Well, thank you. I'm honored to have been on the show, Donald, and to be with Sarah. Just lovely to meet you. And thank you to the audience. I just, you know, we don't get out of this life alive, and might as well just do our journey kindly. So that's my last point on empathy.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Janice, likewise, lovely to meet you. Dawn, it's always a pleasure every 2 weeks to come on your show. For everybody that's joined us, thank you so much. Your comments really help shape the show and our comments too. And remember, you are a light. Just keep shining your light around the world and loan people some of your light. And if you can't be the light, be the mirror to reflect somebody else's light. Mm-hmm. And just always be kind. And thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you both. You're wonderful ladies in so many different ways, especially with your empathetic spirit and intent, and that can't be hid. And you know, I'm going to miss Sarah already, and she's still here. I'm going to have to wait 2 more weeks, and hopefully have Janice back. I think she's done just a wonderful effort towards bringing value to the show, recognizing other people, just being a perfect guest. And you know, this show is an open door for everybody because everybody has a voice. Everybody's voice should be heard and they should be seen. And that's what makes them worthwhile, is being noticed, being recognized, being appreciated, being respected, because that can be such an antidote to what we talked about in the outside world. And it's more refreshing because it's rarer to find and rarer to consistently participate in. So with that, thank you again. Tomorrow's show should be just another great show. I'll tell you who's on. Tomorrow is Gretchen, and Gretchen's just a wonderful lady. Beverly's here Tuesday. Got a new guest with Rita, myself, Colin. And just gets better. So got some great things in the process. We'll love to share it in time. And with that, have a wonderful Sunday. Stay safe. Come back in 23 hours. We'll do it over again. Bye for now.